Let's get started. Y'all, I found the biggest gossip there has ever been in the history of gossip, I believe. That is the fluoride scandal. This should have more views than the Kardashian show. Because this is actually happening in real life. Like the Chismosa investigators we are going to really get into this gossip. This is a gossip channel too, on important things. But before we start today's deep dive, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for believing in me. I want to thank you for sharing your valuable time and this time, in this moment, in this reality with me, and for being open to questioning reality with me. Gracias. But anyways, let's get into it because we have a long road ahead. Yes, we do. Fluoride. If there's one thing I could change about the world, is taking fluoride out of our water supply. And you may be asking, hey, hold on, wait a minute, what's fluoride? And why is it in our water? And why do you want to take it out? All will be explained in this video, lo prometo, okay? And to add to that, I genuinely believe one of the worst things that exist in this world today is sodium fluoride. I genuinely believe that it is in my top 3 worst things I believe exist in this planet. And I have a reason to believe that. And many other people do have a reason to believe that.
I said what I said.
Let's get into the very juicy chisme because I'm pumped and I'm ready to drag this compound, okay? But first, what is sodium fluoride? Welcome, sodium fluoride. Actually, I don't want you in my house, okay? I don't want you here. So no welcome. Sodium fluoride is a chemical compound that can be either colorless or a white solid that is soluble in water. And nowadays, it's considered a pharmaceutical. Honestly, Big Pharma, I don't know what drug you're using, what drug you are under, but you really let this one pass as a pharmaceutical?
Oh, Lord. Again.
You should really check your research team, honestly.
She's got a point.
Even though it's considered a pharmaceutical nowadays, when fluoride was newly presented to the public, it was actually the key ingredient in insecticides and rat poison.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
I'm sorry, what? How did that transition actually work? How did we think rat poison is equivalent to a pharmaceutical? AKA far, very far from being safe for humans. And not only that, no, because do we have a long way to go. Sodium fluoride was actually the #1 contaminant during the Industrial Revolution, since it was the byproduct, or better yet, the toxic waste of most factories during the time. But in order to understand this chemical compound and its effects on today's world, we must learn about its untold past. And trust me, is it messy? Is it messy? Also, all of this is alleged. All of it is alleged. I'm not... all the companies that I'm gonna talk about, allegedly. I've just heard this from a couple of doctors and professionals, but it's all alleged, okay? Now let's get to the fun part. Let's go back to the 1930s.
And a whole new class of citizens appears in American society, the new poor.
Okay, we're in the 1930s, and an aluminium company called Alcoa was deemed the largest fluoride polluter. Before we start, let me see if Alcoa is still a thing. Yes, it is still a thing. So, like I said, allegedly. Okay, but anyways, allegedly, during the 1930s, Alcoa was deemed the largest pollutant of fluoride. And its plants across America started to raise some suspicion. They were suspicious due to the effects that their toxic waste was causing very interesting side effects and harm to the nearby farmland and animals. Okay, okay, Alcoa, go off, I guess, on the farmland and animals. Because of this case, farmers started to notice that their cattle developed very severe diseases, and not only that, but they died very quickly because of unknown reasons.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that the soil wasn't as fertile as compared to past years. And you may be thinking, oh, boo-hoo, the soil wasn't fertile. If the soil's not fertile, your food is not growing. If your food is not growing, you're gonna starve.
Some of y'all about to be real mad at me, but it must be said.
But Alcoa knew this. They already knew that it was gonna cause this side effect on the nearby farmland. So they got ahead legally. They were like, you guys, hey, we're not doing something that good, so we kind of have to protect ourselves because we're not closing anytime soon. We're still making money. So what Alcoa did, allegedly, was buy up all the surrounding farmland, or as much farmland as they could, and pay up any pending settlements they had, because they knew they would eventually be investigated for fluoride toxicity sooner or later. Now, open up your ears. I know your attention span is terrible, but you need to pay attention because you're currently drinking fluoride. So just pay attention for a while because this is where things get a little sticky. At the time, the U.S. Health Public Services were under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Treasury Secretary Andrew W. Mellon. We're going to call him Mr. Mellon for today's case. And guess what? Because the world is so small, Mellon, or Mr. Mellon, was also the mayor, founder, and stock owner of, drumroll please, Alcoa. Yes. It's all the same people protecting each other.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
But there's more, because there's always more. He was also the founder of the Mellon Institute, which was, ironically, a research institute that was known to give companies like Alcoa the scientific data they needed to defend themselves against any lawsuit. So you can say they were ready. You know, they were ready. And what the Mellon Institute did for Alcoa and the metal and chemical industry was what actually started the fluoride scandal. See, at the time, fluoride wasn't public knowledge at all. Ain't nobody interested in fluoride, and nobody knew about her. So a scientist that worked at the Mellon Institute presented Mr. Mellon with the idea of placing fluoride into their water supply. Hey, scientist, I'm talking to you. Yes, why?
Why? Why
would you ever do that? But let me continue. He presented Mr. Mellon with the idea of placing fluoride into the water supply and treating the water supply as a dumping ground. But selling the idea to the public that fluoride helped prevent tooth decay. What? Oh, allegedly. Allegedly. So this, gentleman that worked in the Mellon Institute, let's kind of declutter this. We know that Mellon is the monopoly guy in living proof. He is the monopoly guy for the metal and chemical industry during this time. And so he owned everything, so he could decide everything. He had ties with the government and with Alcoa and with the chemical industry. And so the scientist that worked at his institute knew that there was a problem with chemical waste regarding fluoride. And so he was like, hey, Mr. Mellon, I have an idea. Why don't we put it in the water supply instead of dumping it into the grassland and eventually getting a lawsuit? Let's just put it in the water supply and convince people that it's for their benefit and that it will cure, tooth decay. Does that sound good to you, Mr. Mellon? This, of course, was a win-win situation for Mr. Mellon, so he agreed.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Not only were the people going to believe that fluoride was good, because remember they had no pre-existing knowledge of what fluoride was. They didn't know if it was good or bad. But it was also going to provide the chemical industry the opportunity to avoid any liability of fluoride toxicity by promoting it as a health benefit. But in order to provide supporting evidence that fluoride actually treated tooth decay, they had to make a experiment. And did they make this experiment with rats or 3 people? No, They didn't, because the bigger the experiment, the better. This is where we present the Grand Rapids, Michigan experiment. This experiment included the dumping of 107 barrels of sodium fluoride into the water supply of the city.
Out of pocket for that shit. Way out of pocket. What do you gain from that?
And this was done in order to determine whether tooth decay decreased in the span of 5 years. So yeah, this was a very long experiment with way too much sodium fluoride pumped in the water supply, but I digress. This experiment was essentially made to supply evidence for the chemical and metal industry in order for them to take their chemical waste and sell it to private and public water supply companies. They literally wanted to make profit out of their trash. Wow. I don't want to take their side, but not dumb. Kind of smart.
It's a full-time job, and it's extremely time-consuming, and it's not as easy as it may appear to some people.
Again, they will also use this evidence in the litigation arising from an alleged loss of crop due to fluoride toxicity. It was allegedly a human experiment made to justify the interest in the advances of the nuclear and industrial state.
I'm gonna control myself right now.
But after 5 years, the study concluded that the benefits strongly outweighed the risk. And the program got a green light, meaning that now fluoride could legally be placed into the water supply because it was deemed safe.
No.
Again, like I said, they stated that the benefits outweighed the risk. Therefore, there are risks. And you may be asking, what are the risks? Do they really outweigh the benefits? They did not. But even though it got the green light, H. Tretley Dean, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, this guy, basically the father of fluoride, secretly opposed this experiment and the idea of implementing fluoride into the water supply. If the guy who invented the whole concept says, hey, you guys, I don't think this is a good idea, is saying no, maybe we should, I don't know, maybe we should listen to him.
Yes. You're right again.
You know, I wonder why. I wonder why he opposed it. Maybe he knew that it wasn't safe or necessary at all. See, the conclusion of this experiment when I was looking at it was very odd and rather sketchy. It stated that the participants had fewer cavities, yes, but it failed to emphasize the fact that they had fewer cavities because they had fewer teeth.
No ma'am. No ma'am. No ma'am.
I'm sorry, what? They said they have fewer cavities. Also, it's because they have fewer teeth because this weakens your gums and it literally makes your teeth fall off. But anyways, less cavities. That's what the study concluded and they still passed the green light. But let's say fluoride, yes, was successful at reducing tooth decay. But now why was Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda, this guy, if you didn't know him, was hired to sell Americans on the idea of how good it was to have fluoride in their water? Why convince the public that something is so good for them and safe through propaganda?
Why?
Because we know Edward Bernays has been very honest on the fact that his job was to convince people through subliminal mind-controlling tactics like fear. And he was very transparent in this case too. He was always very transparent with the fact that he was hired to convince people. Whether something was true or false, his job was to convince people. He even stated, quote, "Those who manipulate these unseen mechanisms of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our taste formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of."
That's a bar right there. Bar.
He literally said it. He literally said it. But you know, you can't hate the guy because that was his job. And we're gonna leave it at that for today because it's a lot of information and I really want people to understand what sodium fluoride is and to really take it in because, again, I genuinely think it's a big problemo. This is probably the least concerning part of the whole fluoride scandal, or as I like to call them, the fluoride files. And again, do your own research. I really suggest in this case that you do your own research, because most, if not all of us, drink water that has sodium fluoride in it. And something like water, that's probably the most important thing in our life next to oxygen, should be respected, and it should be, not full of chemicals that harms us. Water is literally here for free, and it's clean, it's filtered by nature.
Yes, I did that.
Part 2 of the fluoride files / the fluoride scandal. Oof, we're literally starting. But yes, tell me if you knew about sodium fluoride, if you've ever heard of her, and what you've heard of her, because I feel like, there's some people that are starting to speak about it, and maybe, hopefully one day, we can just completely ban it together as a community. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Adios, ciao, hasta la próxima.